Welcome back to Devlog 2. We've done a lot since the last time. Created some stats, day night, in-game items, lighting, enemies, zones, redesigned the whole map, redesigned it again with new sprites and a asset pack, created an inventory system, loot system, and overall I just got so confused. I'm trying something new. I'm doing time lapses of the visuals and the codes, so let me know what you think. The very first thing that I did was implemented a hunger system. I feel like hunger is a very important stat in any survival game. The hunger system was broken at first because it just drained way too quickly and I wasn't too sure how to get it to go convert back from a float number into an integer number. Eventually I got it right and the hunger drained much slower, giving us time to get to the closest berry bush and loot that. Another stat that I feel is very important is stamina. Stamina is always a part of any survival game. You can't run away from enemies. Stamina is low, so I implemented that. The stamina was put so that it drains when you move and comes back when you stand still, which is standard in any survival game. After tweaking it and playing around with it, I finally got that to work as well, and I felt it was time to move on to the next thing. Next was the day-night cycle. Again, a core component of any survival. Danger is higher at nighttime and less in the daytime. You also can see more, so I started working on that. This was not as easy as I thought it was going to be. Getting it to dynamically change as the day goes on was a challenge. The basic campfire was next. It was one of the first things that I thought of when I thought survival, especially right after I did the day-night cycle, was to have a source of light. The campfire was one of the first moments that I felt this game was coming together. Having the little 2D character run around trying to find wood and then building a campfire, it really just made it feel like I was getting somewhere. I'm always a bit quick on the trigger, so it's not working yet, but we're getting there. I was gonna cut this out, but I thought I'd just show you some of the debugging process that I go through. When I click the place button, I wanted to see if it actually tries to place the campfire and if then what happens next. So I just wanted to make sure that the loop and the system was working. Because of previous debugging, I debug a lot. I couldn't see the output, so I just had to cancel that out first. I saw that the button was working, so obviously something else was wrong. As I'm watching this back now, I realized the moment that I was sitting with this and I just couldn't figure it out. I had no idea what an export variable was yet, so you'll see me playing around with it, trying to figure out where to put the actual campfire right there. I find the place where the export variable goes, and Bob's your uncle. This was probably one of the coolest feelings when I put this fire down for the first time, and it worked, and I could see that I was interacting with the game in a different way. Lighting is an absolute soul-crushing activity to try, just to give you guys a bit of my pixel art skills as well. But yeah, I was trying to figure out how to do a day-night cycle, how to get that to work, and then obviously we got that to work. I put in the campfire. Now the campfire had to light things up. Another one of those moments where I felt like this project was maybe too big. So yeah, if you're sensitive to light, maybe look away now. I was staring at this screen for probably an hour and a half, and it was just gut-wrenching, and I got such a big headache. But you'll see me gradually get it better and better, and then gradually it becomes worse again. It's just one of those things. This is one of those moments where I'm going to say to be continued, because I just gave up and decided to move on to something next. I started building a crafting system because I thought that's a good next step. I wanted to start with the UI elements first, and here you can see I'm struggling with the anchor points. Also had no idea what they were before this, so just worked on that for a while. If you craft something, you need somewhere to put it. Inventory was up next. Again, this is just a anchor point issue, and I was trying to duplicate what I did with the crafting panel, but you're going to see soon that I just absolutely moved it somewhere where it shouldn't have been. And never mind, you're not going to see that. I had about 20 hours of footage that I had to work through, so I cut that out. But yeah, it was atrocious. After playing with that for about an hour or two, finally got the UI elements to work, and it would swap around between the crafting panel and the inventory panel depending on which button I pushed. Next up was our crafting manager. I realized that I couldn't just have everything as variables in the main player, so I wanted to build a system where I could store the recipes for different items that you're going to be building in the future, and then reference that list when I pull up the crafting panel. I got completely distracted and moved back to combat because I was opening the UI panels, and then I noticed the wolf only attacked me once when I was in range, so that was the next thing I wanted to fix. As you'll see here, basically if you walk into the wolf, all that happens is it pushes you around, but it doesn't actually keep attacking you. Before fixing that, I then realized that I'm going to have more than one enemy, so I turned all those to export variables. What I learned about when I was placing the campfire, realizing that I could use the same enemy script with the same movement, the same detection radius and everything on different enemies, only changing their values for their health and damage and so on. So I did that, and I also fixed the way that the wolf attacks, which you could see here. It broke, so it didn't follow. I had to fix that again. I wanted the enemies to roam around the map as well, so I created a wander radius around them, and they would go to a point and then choose a new point from that point, and they would just move around in kind of like a circle, not straying too far from where they were placed originally. And you'll see that they are moving quite well now. When I was testing the wander radius and the follow distance of the wolf, I realized the campfire needed some more work, so I went back to that. I wanted the player to have a way to sleep because the nighttime is going to be more dangerous, so I tried setting that up with on-body entered methods and functions, like in the previous video when I worked with the trees and the wolf attacking. But this was more difficult because when I originally set up the campfire, I scaled it quite weirdly, so it just wasn't working. I wanted the player to have a way of knowing what they could do when they entered the zone of a campfire, but that was also difficult again because of the scaling. I had set up the light to be way too big, and the scaling was just weird. So you're going to see that I'm playing around with it quite a bit, and I'll get back to it later in the video when I actually fixed it. I got the notification to work properly when you placed down the fire, but it wasn't working when you walked back into the fire. That's just because the collision box was weird. But because I got the notification to work, I felt like it was time to move on to the next thing. I wanted there to be a way to fast forward the time when you were sleeping instead of it just skipping to the morning. Luckily that worked well as I set it up, because I want there to be events that happen at nighttime, like your village or your base getting attacked by the NPCs. I revisited the campfires the next morning to see if I could fix the positioning issue that I had, or the collision box issue. This was actually the first time that I realized it was a collision box issue, and that I had to fix the whether the player went in or out, but I didn't really notice or realize that it was a scaling issue yet. I also lost the footage of where I added in the sound effects for certain actions, but if you hear them, you'll see that I'm trying to add more life to the world. I'm trying to add more ambiance and feeling, and I feel like sound is one of the ways that that just works well. Because this is a top-down 2D game, you see everything, and I didn't want it to be that way, so I tried to develop a field of view, or a way for the player to only see limited things. It made it feel too much like a horror game, so I completely moved away from that. But I was experimenting, and that it may be something that I reconsider in the future. But for the time being, all I did is I set up a vision radius, and if enemies are not in that vision radius, then they aren't visible, and if they are, then they would become visible, just to make it simpler. I didn't want it to be too basic, so I also added in nighttime radius and daytime radius. I just got absolutely sidetracked again, and I wanted to create a visual way to see damage numbers, which I thought would just improve the feeling of the combat quite a bit. That made the combat feel a little bit more real, and you had visual feedback on what you were doing. I felt like I had a good amount of systems in place for just a little bit of a base game or a demo version, so this is where I started moving towards the visual and the audio aspect of the game, and adding in sound was one of the main things that I wanted to do. I know you heard the sounds for the berries earlier, or for the interaction earlier. Having stepping sounds on a player, it just felt like the right thing to do at this time. For the integrity of your ear holes, I've just cut out this audio completely so you don't hear me tasting sounds. And this was the final product. It's not great, but it's a start. I got distracted again, and I started working on a loot table, because I realized I'm going to have different enemies with different loot. I'm also going to have different objects with different loot. So I wanted to have a loot interface where if you interact with an enemy or with an object, this interface would open up and you'd be able to see all the available loot. Now you may ask yourself, what just happened? Why does everything look different? As I said, I'm working on the visual aspects and the audio aspects, and I completely forgot to record when I started using asset packs, because ChatGPT's art, if you watch the first video, you'll know that a lot of the art that I had in my game was from ChatGPT. I just didn't feel like it was good enough, and it didn't have that human feeling to it. So I started using asset packs, and I started building out the map. I wanted to have a beginner island experience where the player gets familiar with some of the systems that are in place. I think at this point I was thinking too big, because I didn't even have all the systems in place yet. So you're going to see later on that I scratch the idea again and I do something different. But I also worked on procedurally generating the locations of the trees and the berries, so that the map is different every single time. Every time you play, it'll be different. Unfortunately, a lot of the footage I either didn't record, or it got lost during the editing process and I'm a few hours into editing this video and I'm not going to try and find it now. So if there are things that you see here that you didn't see in the previous video or earlier in this video, just think of it as a teaser. We'll just call it that. I wanted to have a little bit of a platform that the player could discover when they first exited the tutorial island. So I started playing around with that and I discovered layering tile sets and how to make it look a little bit more 3D. So you can see a bit of that process. I also redid the entire map with a new tile set, but I scrapped that completely eventually and just went back to the basics of having a testing island for myself. I ended up buying an asset pack and I think that was probably one of the best moves that I've made. It helped me to not focus so much on what the game looks like, but more how it works. And that's the reason why I gave up so many of my previous projects as well. This asset pack included animations and things like that as well. So the game looks very different now than it did in the rest of the video, but that's just because of the asset pack. All of the systems and everything else that's in place is the same. If you made it to this point of the video, I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe. It'll help me out massively to keep my motivation up. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you have any ideas, put them in the comments. If you liked this video, like it. If you didn't like this video, dislike it. Yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.